From the News Channel 5 Network, this is MorningLine.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine. Nick Barris here on a Wednesday. We have a good show on tap for you. Hope you join in the conversation. I want to remind you again, we are doing the show from over here in the set that Steve and Amy were just at because we're having some work done on our studio over there. So, yeah, same building, different set, same show. And we're going to open up the phone lines this morning. We're talking about malpractice cases, whether or not you may have a case against a doctor or a hospital. You know the number, 737+ if you want to join in the conversation. Our guest, I mean, it's not me. I'm not the attorney to answer these questions for you. The attorney is Clint Kelly, malpractice attorney extraordinaire. My friend, good morning. How do you like the new digs?
I like it.
It's not bad. A little more comfortable. Leland's sitting over there.
I try to get the weather anytime I want. I like that. Yeah.
Anytime you want. Well, it's good to have you on, and we're going to get to the phones in a moment, but we want to set the table for you and just give you the sense again about what we're talking about here. And Clint, of course, is a regular guest. And all right, I always like to hit the biggies right off the bat. First of all, malpractice. How do you know if something is a legitimate case?
Two major things.
Yep.
A bad medical mistake causes a really bad injury. Those are the two things you look for. And once you've got that determination made, either in your own mind or in your gut, or if someone's told you, maybe even another healthcare professional has told you that, pick up the phone and give me a call. It's a free call. You got nothing to lose. And I will investigate your case and determine whether or not you have a lawsuit.
Right, and that's why, and you want to call when you suspect. It costs nothing to call an attorney. It'll cost you if you have a good case and you wait more than a year.
Absolutely, because in Tennessee, as you and I have spoken about many, many times, you have to file your lawsuit within 1 year of the date that you discover the injury, or else your claim is barred. And you know, Nick, I'd say a quarter of the cases that I've gotten over my career, I've had to turn away because the person who called me waited too late to file the lawsuit.
Okay, and I'm just curious, with your cases, and people now are getting a handle on this and they can call in, we'll get to your calls in just a moment, but some of your cases are settled outside of court. Others, you go to trial, correct?
Correct.
And do you coach your clients at all, as any attorney does, when they have to testify?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it'd be malpractice, legal malpractice not to. And that's, juries expect that. I mean, they want to see your client at their best so they can make a determination of what the right thing to do is. The doctor's insurance company and their lawyers will counsel their doctor how to testify. So, I mean, it's to a great extent, it's all about being prepared and making sure you put your best case forward so the jury can make an informed decision.
I wanted to ask you about a case that's not malpractice. You're an attorney in general, of course, who I respect a lot, and there are some similarities to some degree based on what she's going after and being damaged, but it's the Erin Andrews case, the trial that's been covered here. We're all following it. You know, suing Marriott for, I think it's $75 million. Is there not a cap on what she can sue a Marriott or something like that? I know there's caps on what you can sue.
Yeah, I believe Miss Andrews' case accrued before the tort reform caps went into effect, so she's under the old law right now and is, I believe, able to recover whatever extent the jury wants to award her. I think this case is a great lesson for people who want to watch and see how the court system is supposed to work, because the trial, from what I've been able to observe, has been very well run, been very well litigated by both sides. Obviously, it's a very emotionally impactful case, and I think it's also an opportunity for people to see, you know, when someone has been damaged, whether they've been humiliated or actually physically harmed, you see how it affects someone, and who better than 12 people from our community to decide whether or not that person deserves compensation and to mete out justice.
You know, and that one thing about the emotion of it all, and you've had clients, I'm sure, that have taken the stand, and the emotion that they may or may not show. And you said something to me as you followed this, and I actually got to sit in part of the hearing when Erin Andrews actually took the stand a couple of days ago, and she was on again yesterday. But a lot of tears, and I understand the emotion for her, and it hit for me. I was feeling, you know, as I watched her, but as I looked at her, and this is interesting, ties in with what you told me a moment ago, I would look over at the jury. Now, I know the jurors are supposed to pretty much remain stoic and not show a lot of emotion themselves, but I didn't get a sense, except for maybe a couple, that they were reacting to the constant crying. And again, I sympathize with Erin, and I can understand why she's crying, but can that backfire?
In my experience, it can. We never know what a jury's thinking. I mean, then that is rule number one. You never are going to know what the jury thinks until they actually deliver a verdict. But I've had cases where a patient who's been injured or a loved one who lost someone who died from medical negligence cried persistently through their testimony. And I thought it was emotionally impactful.
Yeah, because I did while I was sitting in there. I thought, oh, this is emotional.
In fact, I looked over the jury one time and I saw one of the jury members crying as they heard my witness crying. And I thought, wow, this is, really, really strong. This should have a big impact on what the jury decides to do. Well, we lost the case. This was years ago in Greene County. I talked to one of the jurors after the case, and it turned them off. It really turned them off. I don't think they thought it was crocodile tears, but jurors, just like the rest of us, when you look at someone who's crying, there's a natural inclination to want to turn away. That's the way we're hardwired.
Yeah.
And after a certain amount of time, when that goes on, sometimes you lose the message. You're paying more attention to what someone is, the emotion of it, and really kind of getting turned off by it and not listening to what someone is saying. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen here. She may hit one out of the park, but if there is a bad result in this case, that may be one reason why.
Wow, interesting. Okay, so yeah, you coach your clients as best you can, and you try to balance how much is. You're right. Well, I sat in there, and I was there in there with Rick actually, and we're watching this, and it was hard to look at. Sometimes you didn't want to make eye contact. It was difficult because she was crying.
It's the message.
And then you're thinking about the emotion, and you miss some of the message.
It's the message.
Good point. All right, listen, the phone lines are open, 737-7587, if you want to jump in. Just wanted to ask you anything else on the table right now that caught your attention you wanted to hit on. No changes really in tort law or anything of even though that continues to evolve. Any cases that have captured your attention at all, locally or otherwise, you want to hit on?
Not really. I mean, the biggest case was the case you reported on,
exactly,
which went viral. I don't know anyone that's been bigger than that within the last 30 days.
Yeah, and one that went national, and I was going to ask you for many of our viewers, if you don't mind, is there anything new on that? The story, of course, aired earlier last month. Of course, now we're into March already. Hard to believe we're in March, but early February. And it was the case of the wrong baby having surgery performed, a newborn per se, the surgery, and it is a surgery. I had some people say, oh, it's not surgery. Well, you're cutting on someone, it's a surgery, where they severed some skin underneath the baby's tongue, which can help, right, if your child's tongue-tied. But in this case, they got the wrong baby. What kind of reaction did you get to the story?
Oh, man, Nick, emails, phone calls. It ran in CNN, Headline News, ABC ran it, People.com ran it. I had Inside Edition and the Doctor Show call wanting to have Miss Melton on the show. And if you read the comments under the, particularly People.com, when they were reporting the story online, it was just amazing what people said. I would say about 90% of the people were really sympathetic to Miss Melton and understood what she was going through, and in fact many encouraged her to bring a lawsuit. And there's always that 10% of the people who either don't like lawsuits or people who just, I call it the get over it kind of folks, who they're always the folks who are first to the courthouse door when it happens to them, but if it happens to somebody else, I'll just get over it. But in general, I thought the feedback was good, and I thought it brought an awareness to people that as I told you and you reported in your show, that you're going to see, I think, a move to try to have babies kept in mama and daddy's room as opposed to being taken to the nursery.
There the whole time, meaning that they would wheel in a little incubator unit and leave the baby where the mom needs to get some rest right there next to her.
Unless the baby has some major difficulties or handicaps that requires a neonatologist, there is a move afoot to do that. I don't know if it's necessarily because of mistaken identity as much as it is they want mama and daddy in the care, because that tends to prevent mistakes.
It makes perfect sense. Just as far as when I did the story with you initially, you were still in the process of preparing, be it a lawsuit or a settlement or anything. And this again is with a hospital in Lebanon, which I believe is maybe changing its name. I don't know. Which
they probably should.
What's the status of the case? How does something like this play out now? As you said, it's pretty darn clear. There's no disputing what happened here. The hospital is even conceding it. The doctor who performed it apologized. So there's no did this happen or didn't it? It happened. The question now is, what's the resolution?
The resolution is twofold. From my perspective, the resolution is I want to find out why this happened and how it could have been prevented. Is there a system problem at this hospital, University Medical Center at Lebanon, that created the conditions under which this kind of mistake, and it's an inexcusable mistake, happened? That's one of the reasons why we have lawsuits, is to perform investigations, to try to figure out why this happened and how it could be prevented. And then the second part of this, of course, is what is reasonable compensation for Miss Melton and Nate for having to go through this. And a lot of times you cannot make that determination until you're into a lawsuit and there's discovery taken and the investigation is completed. So
you think it'll go to trial, or you think there'll be a settlement?
I don't know, Nick.
Don't know. Hard to say.
You just, how many people thought Erin Andrews' case was going to go to trial?
Yeah. That happened back in 2008. Goodness gracious. Well, yeah, you have to take a break on that. But when you talk about, just imagine you're there at a very joyous time, a newborn baby, and then you find out surgery was performed on the child, and it was the wrong baby. Yours was healthy, didn't need this. The other child needed it, didn't get it. They mixed it up. Still, no wonder it went viral. That was a big deal.
The lion's share of the people that were making comments were women and expectant mothers.
Oh, or as a father, I would have freaked out if that was my son right afterwards. I mean, unfortunately, the child's going to be okay, but you never know, and that's why you follow up. Listen, we're taking a break. When we come back, if you're on hold, Beverly, Robert, you get an idea of the kind of questions you can ask. We'll run it by Clint and see whether or not you have a case. Lines open. Join us. We'll be back right after this.